Injury updates and build day. Next on Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Brandon Scott again with my guy, the real Ed Oliver. Thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. So today we are going to cover the injury updates, talk about build day and the open practice, and the GM survey from last season. So first off, injury updates. Let's get into it. Kristaps Porzingis, not serious. Wes Unseld said that the injury is not serious, that if it was a regular season game, KP would have played. Also, Deni, him playing the next preseason game is contingent on him completing 5-on-5, but it was said that he was dunking in practice, so that's good news. And Brad, he made it safely through the states and COVID-19 protocols, so he is a maybe for the next game. So, Ed, what do you think about the news about the injuries?
Yeah, it's a lot. The injuries and people being out are piling up, but that's good news. There's some good news with Porzingis for sure. That he said that if it was a regular season game, he would have came back. It reminds me of the Pistons game where he injured his ankle and he came right back in. He dropped 30 points in that Pistons game where we won it in Detroit. So, he's trying to debunk the narrative that he's injury prone, and he has missed a lot of games. So it's hard to argue that, but he's trying to show that he's able to bounce back and play. So that's good news there. LaMelo Ball last night, he hurt his ankle too, and he's going to be out. He's going to miss some time longer than Porzingis. He's going to miss some of the regular season games they reported. So looks like we got some good luck there with Porzingis. I'm happy to hear that. If I were the Wizards, I would think strongly about sitting him that last preseason game and just getting him ready for October 19th, to be honest with you. I'm not the biggest load management guy, but it's the preseason. So, you don't want to press it too much with Porzingis. We need him to play at least 70 games. I think he's going to play 70 games, which is about 10 or 15, 20 more games than what he's played on average the last couple of games per season. Then Deni, that's good news too. We need to get him back. We need to get some depth there back at the small forward or four spot. I know we have a lot of guys that play that same position, but, we need him for his defense for sure and his playmaking. So we need him back for sure. And, him playing 5-on-5, we'll see how that goes tomorrow. Hopefully it's good. But like you said, we heard that he was dunking at the open practice tonight. So that's good news too. We need these guys to develop. Denny's one of the guys that we need to make a leap to be successful. This season is really going to heavily rely on not just Brad and Porzingis, but on our young guys, our young draft picks like Deni, Rui, and Corey. We're going to need these guys to make a leap and step up. So we need Deni healthy, all hands on deck. Brad, we just need him for the 19th too. Hopefully he can play in the last preseason game, but if he's not, we just need him ready for the 19th. But we do need him practicing and getting back in shape. But it is concerning that he wasn't able to be there for Bradley Beal Day to celebrate and be there with his kids and his wife Kamaya. That's unfortunate, that he wasn't even available to celebrate Bradley Beal Day. And we know all the things that, happened last year with him and the vaccine and all this stuff. And he's just been out so much with health and safety protocols. I feel like he's been out more than a lot of players due to health and safety protocols. So it's unfortunate that he wasn't there tonight to celebrate Bradley Beal Day, with his family and with the fans.
Yeah, I'm not concerned yet. Obviously, the most severe injury is Corey Kispert being out, 4-6. But Brad, the fact that he's already made it through protocols, I think is good news. I think they're kind of being a little cautious with him because COVID is one of those things where, it can spread quick. We saw last season, it spread fast. Or really the last two seasons. So, I can understand the caution with Brad. Deni, that's good news. That's really good news because one, we're getting a little bit of depth back, and 2, a little bit of competition. Because if Deni comes back, and with Rui playing the way he is, and with Will Barton playing the way he is, that makes this an even better competition. I think that's a good thing for this team. Competition is a good thing. And, with KP, I love what I hear from KP. I'm loving everything I've heard from him. I've become a big fan of him since we have acquired him last season. Just kind of getting to know him, seeing how he talks, how he carries himself. That's what you want to hear from a guy that you project to be a second star. He's saying all the right things. I think a lot of people were kind of gasping when they saw him go down. And so it's definitely good news. You know what I mean? So it's definitely good news that it's not severe. So I'm not panicking yet, but 8 days away. So, I like to see 2 out of the 3 probably play the next game. And, and like we just covered, they're being cautious of Brad, but I'd like to see him at least in 1 preseason game. The sooner they can get some kind of chemistry, especially between him, Kuz, and KP, the better. Because I think that of all the factors that we've named, the cohesion between those 3 are the most important. The better they play together, because that's the core. That's our solid big 3. So the better those 3, how they coexist with each other is the better for us. So, that's what I want to see going forward. I'd like to see Brad play at least 1 preseason game. What do you think?
Yeah. So, I would too. I wanted to see more of these guys too. I wanted to see them get more in rhythm, the pick and roll, the pick and pop. They only got to play 1 game together, and chemistry is key. Chemistry is huge. And once again, like I said, we don't want these guys getting hurt in preseason, but we do want them to get some rhythm and playing, because they didn't get to play with each other last year. So they really haven't gotten a chance to really play with each other. So that is something to definitely look at. It's going to be a work in progress, but I think they're gonna work together really well quickly. But at the same time, you do want them to get some live in-game reps against competition. So that is it's not a big concern, but it is somewhat of a concern that we just didn't get to see these guys gel together much in the 4 preseason games. And same thing with Deni too. It's going to be tough for West to insert Deni in. It's hard to get a rotation anyway in the preseason, but Deni's gonna have to fight for his minutes. Same thing with Rui is going to have to fight for his minutes. Will Barton is most likely going to start, but he's going to have to earn his minutes too. So it's kind of similar to what happened last year a little bit, where guys were coming in off injuries like Thomas Bryant. It's not anywhere as concerning where Rui was out 40 games, Thomas Bryant was out the first 40 games. It's nowhere near that, but at the same time, I'm not going to sleep on it. I'm going to keep my eyes open on the situation and just see how these guys gel together and how the chemistry works too.
Yeah, I think that the sooner they can get the chemistry rolling is the better, because you do not want to work on chemistry going into a season. Especially for a team, and I say that, most contending teams can, because there's enough talent there. And we're just not there yet. We're a team that can go anywhere from playing into the 6th seed. So, we are really relying on this team having a fast start and really gelling quickly, because, like you said, last season, we started out 10-3, but that was with that core group. When we started getting guys back, whether it was Thomas Bryant, whether it's Rui, it shows how, too much depth can mess with chemistry. And that's exactly what happened. Too much depth, when guys started coming back. And that was a big question mark that everybody was waiting for, last season was, what's going to happen to this group when TB gets back, when Rui gets back. And we saw that too much depth can be a bad thing, especially when it messes with chemistry and messing with minutes with guys who, in an example of Trez, he was a starter most of his career. So, he had expectations of how many minutes he should have. So there was a shaky situation last season. But, that's why I want to see Bragg at least play 1 preseason game, because the sooner the better. But before we move on, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, how does it work? Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport you can watch. This includes NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. safe and fast withdrawals, and currently operational in not all 30 states, 30 states in Canada. So Prize Picks. So going forward, tonight was open practice, and it was also Bradley Beal Day in the nation's cap. So Ed, as you know, Bradley Beal has done a lot for the community. Mm-hmm. So what do you think this means to him, and what do you think this means to the city today, it being Bradley Beal Day?
Oh, it's huge. I know he just helped build a court. I want to say the Benjamin Banneker court where he took the first shot. It was actually an air ball over the summer. I know his wrist was hurt, but that's awesome for the young people in the community. He does a lot of good things. He did win an award. I want to say it was the humanitarian award a couple of years ago. Not too long ago with the young boys. I want to say it was a private school where Bradley Beal did a lot of things with those young men. Those young men and young teens in school. So he's done a lot of good things for the community. He's done great things on and off the court. John Wall did a lot of good things on and off the court as well. So that's one thing about the Wizards. They really do a lot of good things in the community for sure. I think almost every Wizard on the team, they do a lot of things on and off the court in the community. I think Bradley Beal really loves the city of DC, and I think a lot of the youth in the city of DC really appreciate Bradley Beal and the work that he puts in. He puts a lot of work in. So that's awesome to see, man. A young brother doing his thing, giving back to the community. We know, he's definitely earned a lot of money with his time in DC. You look at the contract, and he's putting some of his worth and some of what he's earned towards good things. So it's always good to see a young brother like Bradley Beal give back to the community. So I'm happy for that. October 11th, Bradley Beal Day. But once again, it's just unfortunate he wasn't able to spend it there in person. But I did see some clips where he was on the Jumbotron where he talked. And like I said, his wife and kids were there to show up. So October 11th is Bradley Beal Day. So that's very intriguing. I'm happy for him.
Absolutely. Beautiful thing. If you look at going back to John Wall, you've seen players on his team make a huge impact in his community. And it shows how close his community is with this team. It's just, and one thing, the one year we had Russell Westbrook, what impressed me about that was, there weren't a lot of fans in arenas. And I noticed that one game, Russ took a pair of shoes off and he ran over to a team employee knowing that they could probably, you know what I mean? It's a beautiful thing when you see guys really have that connection to a community. Bradley Beal has done a lot for the community in Washington, D.C. DC is going through a transitional period. There's a lot going on. So this is when you see things like this from your sports figures, it's like I said, it's a beautiful thing. So now it's much deserved, much deserved. It really cements him into being a key figure in Wizards basketball history as far as his connection to the community. So, no, beautiful thing. So, no, I just wanted to touch base with it, but we are going to get, yes, sir. So, we are going to move on. And last season, there was a GM survey. And there was questions about every position, and GMs chimed in. And there was two major areas that came up. One, Bradley Beal was voted as the best shooting guard, second to James Harden. And Spencer Dinwiddie, he was 14% of GMs said he was the most underrated offseason acquisition. So, what do you think about that?
We're gonna go over some of the GM survey picks that they had for us this year too. There wasn't much, but it was more last year. But it is funny to just look back on what they picked. Kind of like old takes exposed on Twitter, or like when you look back and you see some of the wrong takes and wrong picks. Bradley Beal second to James Harden. I had no problem with that. I think at that time he was all NBA. He had 30 points a game, and was a key big reason why we made the playoffs that year. So I had no problem with that. He did regress this year. He had a bad year, but Dinwiddie, oh my gosh, 14% of GMs believe Spencer Dinwiddie was the most underrated offseason. And I was excited for that pickup too. I'm not gonna lie. I was happy when Tommy Shepard made that trade. I thought it was a good deal. I was like, hey, we're gonna get a good point guard. We found out that he's not a point guard. We found out that he wasn't 100%. We all knew he wasn't 100% healthy, but he just looked like he couldn't move. Grenade passes left and right, where he would just pass the ball at the end of the shot clock to Kuzma, and Kuzma would have to throw up a shot clock buzzer-beating three, and he would miss. And then some of the things that Spencer Dinwiddie said after he left about the locker room and about his role and miscommunication and all kinds of stuff. Dinwiddie, every time he was able to take a shot at the organization, at the Wizards, he took that opportunity. I was so happy when we swept Dallas and we beat Dallas by like 20 points, and Dinwiddie was on that team. I was so happy about that. And for whatever reason, him and Brad, it just did not work. It was just your turn, my turn with the basketball. And I'm so happy we have more of a natural point guard in Monte Morris. So that's just hilarious looking back on that.
Yeah, it's very comical because, 14%, not a high percentage, but like you said, I was very optimistic too. I wanted another point guard coming in. I liked Spencer Dinwiddie's game. I like what I saw in Brooklyn. The injury, ACL shaky. ACL is not as bad as it used to be. People are coming back sooner. They're able to have, very productive careers after ACL, but it's just a shaky. You never know what you're going to get, and it showed that he wasn't 100% healthy. And it's just the speed. That's a whole. We've been talking about the speed stuff, but Bradley Beal. I'm gonna bring up two things that I get from this survey. One, it shows that GMs had a very high opinion of Bradley Beal. So what does that tell you? And I don't want to be a downer, but it tells you that he could have been traded. Because he was still a hot commodity, and that shows you that if you're second to James Harden, that tells you something. So going last season, when they were talking about the 7th and the 14th pick, and maybe it was Wiggins and
like
I think it was another player.
And I want to say Jordan Poole.
There you go. I wasn't a big fan of that. I love Brad Beal, but that was the juiciest deal I've seen that we could have gotten. You know what I mean? That's a good package. So that shows you that, we didn't necessarily have to go long term. We could have flipped them, but hey, it is what it is at this point. And with Spencer Dinwiddie, I can see why they, 14% of them did. Because, on paper, that's not a bad acquisition. I thought they were going to be a pretty good backcourt. It's just, like I said, Bradley Beal, he thrives with a faster point guard. It just, and there's another thing I'm going to point out, too. That was the second thing I'm going to point out. Bradley Beal, the general manager, don't need to happen anymore. Because look, he was a big catalyst of Spencer Dinwiddie coming to DC. So that shows me that, I get that Brad is trying to, bring guys to DC, and that goes big. And I think that, because I think he's going to take a step forward. So if he has a good season, you're going to see more guys with interest coming to DC. Now, I know that's easier said than done because DC's never really been a big free agent destination. But I think that Brad is trying to create an atmosphere here where he's trying to get guys in. So that was a step. I get what he was trying to do. He's trying to talk guys, it just didn't work out. The chemistry issues, like I said, goes back to depth, goes back to, who the voice in the locker room is. I think that Spencer, coming in, being a point guard, he had expectations that, point guards are usually the quarterback of the team. So they usually are the loudest voice in most teams. When John Wall was here, he was the voice in the locker room. When the 1 year that Russ was here, he was the voice in the locker room. So I think he came in with those expectations, and it's just clearly Brad's that guy. Brad is that guy. So, yeah, I can see, but it is what it is at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm happy that we moved on. They had to move on early. It got so bad to the point where we just had to move on in the middle of the season. Like, I've never seen an acquisition turn so bad to the point where he had to be traded at the deadline. He didn't even finish a full year of the contract that he signed with the Wizards. So I just haven't seen many things like that happen before. And then we flipped him for Porzingis. So, hey, Tommy Shepard made the best out of the situation. He flipped Dinwiddie and Bertans and got Porzingis in a second-round pick. So I would have done that trade any day of the week to move on from those two guys, and we upgraded with Porzingis. So, but yeah, the rest of the survey, 7% of the GMs believe the Wizards had the best overall offseason. I think that was because we flipped Russ, and we got, we moved on from his contract. We didn't have to pay him, $47 million, which what the Lakers are going to pay him this year, they are paying him this year. And then Dinwiddie received votes for one player acquisition that will have the biggest impact. And then Wes Unseld Jr. received votes last year for the new relocated head coach to make the biggest impact on his new team. That didn't really work out. Ime Udoka, who's suspended now, he had the biggest impact. You look at Willie Green, who's a new coach for the Pelicans. They went to the playoffs. So two new head coaches went to the playoffs. Wes Unseld Jr. didn't make the playoffs. Jamal Mosley was a new head coach. Jason Kidd was he wasn't a new head coach, but he was a relocated head coach. So other relocated head coaches and new head coaches, they made the playoffs while Wes Unseld Jr. had a hot start, but he struggled throughout the year. Jason Kidd and the Mavericks made it to the playoffs. And then lastly, the Wizards received votes for most improved in 2021, 2022. So, but lastly, this year, we didn't make the GM survey much at all. Bradley Beal made it again. He received votes for best shooting guard in the NBA. Number one was Devin Booker at 45%. Luka was at 28%. Steph Curry was at 17%. Steph's not a shooting guard. I mean, he's really a point guard. Devin Booker, I can understand. And James Harden got votes. Jason Tatum got votes as well. And then the other one, what was the most underrated player acquisition? Monte Morris and Will Barton got votes. Number one was Malcolm Brogdon to the Boston Celtics. Number two was PJ Tucker to Philly at 14%. John Wall to the Clippers at 14%. DeAnthony Melton to the Sixers at 10%. Bojan Bogdanovic to Detroit at 7%. And then the Wizards got votes with Will Barton and Monte Morris. And then lastly, which active player will make the best head coach someday? And Taj Gibson got votes. Number one was Chris Paul. Number two was Garrett Temple, the former Wizard, at 14%. And number three was CJ McCollum with New Orleans at 7%. Patrick Beverley also got votes as well. Malcolm Brogdon got votes. And Jalen Brunson. Draymond Green got votes. I don't know if they're going to take those votes back because of what he did to Jordan Poole in that fight. I don't know who really wants to hire him as a coach after that. We'll see. But Taj Gibson made the list. So shout out to Taj Gibson. Ish Smith made the list too, former Wizard. So what stood out to you from any of those lists that the Wizards made the GM survey?
I think that Draymond Green could be an MMA coach. But, going back to last season, like I said, a lot of people were optimistic about us being improved with Spencer Dinwiddie. So I'm going to touch base. Again, I can see why people were optimistic, especially because it took half the teams in the league to get the trade completed. But, it is what it is. But going into this season, Monte Morris and Will Barton being key acquisitions, people see it. I think that was probably the most important under the radar trade made this offseason, because you hit two areas of need, and not only that, you improved the system, in my opinion. Dinwiddie's way too slow. You got a guy who's going to run the ball. You got a guy who's going to push the pace. You got a guy who's going to distribute. As you saw the last preseason game, he shot awful, but he still was distributing the ball. That's what you want from a point guard. Dinwiddie was score first. Morris is about distributing. If he's got the shot, he's going to take it. That's another thing I like from him. He's a Swiss Army knife. I love the trade. So, and Taj Gibson being a coach, I see that. He's got the knowledge. I could definitely see that. I think that was another good signing this offseason. It was Taj Gibson. He's going to, and together with Marcin Gortat working with our bigs, you're going to see a much improved big guy group. I think Daniel Gafford is going to take a step forward. He's already shot blocker. He's working in the paint. He did get on that rebound a little bit, but I see him improving, especially with the mid-range shot. I think he's going to take a lot more mid-range shots. But KP, sky's the limit. I think the only thing is health. That's it. With KP, if he could stay healthy, like you said, 70 games, this is an all-star season for him, because the talent is an all-star talent. Easy. I mean, he's a top tier player in my opinion. I know he's not getting a lot of love, and it has a lot to do with injuries, which I never understood when you look at players like Zion, who's been hurt forever, still getting a lot of love. So it is what it is. But those are the two things that stood out to me most. Was we are getting a lot of love, which is from like you said, is pretty much the only love. But we're getting a lot of love with the Monte Morris and Will Barton moves, and people are also saying Taj Gibson, being a good move, because he could definitely be a coach one day. So those are the two areas that I definitely agree with.
Definitely, I think Taj Gibson would definitely be a coach. I think he's a guy that's definitely going to help guys like Gaff, Vernon Carey, some of the young bigs, and I think he'll help Porzingis out a little bit too. I'm happy that we brought in Gortat as well. So we got some guys that can definitely help out and teach some other bigs. I think Taj Gibson is certainly going to help with that. And he's knocking down three. So if he does have to get some playing time, I think, and I always compare him to Udonis Haslem. He is going to be the Udonis Haslem on this team. We just don't have the success that the Miami Heat have had. But, I think he can go into that Udonis Haslem role. Then Barton and Morris being an underrated pickup. I think I thought it was a good trade. Flipping KCP and Ish for Barton and Morris. Morris, we needed a point guard. Desperately, we needed a point guard. And I think he definitely will come into that role and fit really well next to Bradley Beal, better than the point guards that we had last year. And then Will Barton, man, he's a professional. He's a professional scorer. He's a professional microwave scorer, and he can wiggle. He has some isolation. He has a lot of isolation game to his game, off the dribble. Great separation, great isolation player, great passer. So I love what I saw from Will in the preseason game. So I'm excited to see what he can do. And then lastly, I just want to get your thoughts on this quote from Porzingis talking about Kyle Kuzma playing point forward. We did get to see some of that last night. Porzingis said, quote, "He's great. That's one of the things I like most about him. His ability to create for everybody. He's big. He sees over the defenses. He knows how to pass the ball," end quote. What were your thoughts about that quote from Kristaps?
It's intriguing. If need be, I could see that. But I think people need to let them play their positions. We have 2 point guards for a reason. Like I said, if we have injuries, I can see that. Just like last year, Brad was bringing the ball up, second unit. If need be, yes. But I don't want that to be like the thing going starting now. Let Monte be the point guard. Let Daylon take care of second unit. I just that's the one thing that kind of bugs me is, trying to reinvent the wheel and try to create, some teams you can do that. With the Lakers, yeah, LeBron James is going to be a point forward because he's the marquee dude. Same thing with, the Milwaukee. Giannis is going to be the point forward because he's the marquee guy. He's that guy. Not against Kuz, but I want to see Kuz the scorer, Kuz the wing, Kuz the rebounder. You know what I mean? I don't want to see guys, trying to, because it's been like 1,000 guys trying to bring the ball up. They were talking about Johnny Davis bringing the ball up. They were talking about Brad bringing the ball up. You know what I mean? It's just that's what caused issues last season. Trying to shift people here and there. People are out of position. People are losing minutes. That's what caused the mayhem last season. Let people play their position. Look, we have what we need, a point guard. We have 2 good point guards. Really, in my opinion, Wright could start too. I mean, with his length, with his defense, with his shot, we have 2 guys who could both start. So that makes a blessing. So if need be, I get it. If we have injuries or, depending on matchups with other teams, I get it. But I don't want that to be, the plan going forward. Let guys play either position. So, that's just my opinion.
Actually, I like it. I like what I saw from him last night where he was bringing the ball down. He had some hockey passes, some hockey assists, where he passed the ball to Rui, and then Rui passes to Johnny Davis, and then Johnny Davis passes to Vernon Carey for an easy shot. And that was with the second and third unit, was mixed in with some of the young guys towards the end of the game. And then, Kuzma had a triple-double last year. He had a couple games where he had a good amount of assists. Where there was another game where he almost had a triple-double. He passed the ball to Corey Kispert. Corey Kispert didn't take the shot, and he was upset because he didn't get his triple-double. But Kuz can facilitate, man. I like that we have versatile guys. Like Deni can be a point forward at sometimes. So I like Kuzma being point forward at sometimes. Not all the time, but if he does get the rebound, I like him to push. I like if Rui gets the rebound, I like him to push too. So I think the more ball handlers, the better. So it brings a lot of versatility. That's one thing about this team. We have a lot of versatility. And we have a lot of guys that do have positional flex as well. So I do like that. I like Kuz bringing the ball up sometimes here and there. I do like that.
Well, you're quite convincing because, look, I don't have a problem with it either. It depends on the matchups. You know what I mean? Now, like starting the game, no. I want to see Monte bringing up starting the game. But with certain matchups, absolutely. No, I'm not totally against it. I ain't sipping on the haterade yet. I think that it could be a good thing. He's shown that he can do it. Same thing with Deni. Same thing with Brad. It shows the versatility. We have not had versatility like this for a while. People forget. A couple years ago, Isaac Bonga was our small forward. So we've come a long way. You know what I mean? So, I like the versatility. So I would love to see it just in certain matchups. So, But we're going to go ahead and wrap it up tonight. Appreciate everybody watching. Now, both of us are on Twitter, so definitely check us out on Twitter. Our Twitter handles are below. And like and subscribe if you like our content. Now, oh my. So appreciate everybody and have a good night.